I covered how to build this basic cardboard box grow space in a previous video, which I'll link in the description. And today we'll be putting it to use to grow an auto-flowering plant, from seed to harvest. The box is pretty small, having less than 2 by 2 by 2 feet of space, but with the lights mounted on the ceiling of the box, there's a surprisingly large amount of space to work with. I'm starting to grow in these large nursery bags that are filled with coco coir, and I'll be dropping in some autoflower seeds that I germinated through the paper towel method. You also might have noticed that there are 3 nursery bags in here, and that's just because I needed a place to grow 2 extra seedlings while I'm setting up another grow space for them. Since we're dealing with a cardboard box, I can't be as careless with watering as I usually am with a normal grow tent, cause any spilled water on the box can easily destroy it or cause mold over time. So I'm using a storage bin as a way to catch any runoff water. Since I'm working with just coco coir, I'll need to provide the plants with all the nutrients it needs throughout the entire grow cycle. Initially, this means that I'm watering the seedlings with a grow fertilizer at 50% of the recommended dosage, and I'll gradually increase this over time to 100% about a week into the seedling stage, when the plants have fully transitioned to the vegetative stage. I'm also keeping the plants on an 18-hour on and 6-hour off light cycle. And now that the plants are getting a little larger, I'll be moving the other 2 plants to another grow space, so that this one has enough room to fully develop on its own. You can see here that the roots have already reached the bottom of the nursery bag and are trying to expand out. And there is a little bit of algae growth as well due to the runoff nutrient water being exposed to the light. So I'm just gonna fill the empty space of the storage bin with more coco coir to allow the roots to expand out more and to protect it from the grow light. I'm only watering the outer edges of the storage bin instead of the nursery bag, and this should help the roots expand out faster since it'll detect that there's water outside of the nursery bag and grow out to find it. And that's one of the beauties of working with a nursery bag, because it allows the roots to grow through it so that you don't have to remove it from the nursery bag when transplanting into a larger space. By watering the outer edges, I can also easily monitor when the nutrient water has been used up by the roots based on the color of the coco coir. One of the hardest parts of growing with a storage bin, though, is that there's no real way to flush the entire system since there's no drain holes. So any kind of nutrient buildup or imbalance will be really hard to fix here. But for now, everything seems good, so I'm just trying to water only when the plants need it. Now that the plant's getting a little taller, I tied the top stem to the side of the storage bin to keep the plant a little lower in height. And unfortunately, 2 days after tying it down, the entire grow light system shut down on me. I don't know what happened, but everything reset back to its default settings, which turned everything off. And I didn't notice this for almost 2 days, so the plant was in complete darkness for like 36 hours. After redoing all of the settings for the lights and the fans, the plant still seemed okay. So to try and help it recover as much as possible and to make up for lost time, I placed it under 24 hours of lighting for a couple of days before resuming back to an 18:6 light cycle. One of the interesting things to note here is that right after the 36 hours of darkness, this plant seemed to have switched to the flowering cycle. And I've heard that insufficient lighting can initiate the flowering cycle early for autoflowers, but obviously I never wanted to try this out since it basically involves underlighting your plants. So it's interesting to see that it happened here, while the other two plants that were started with this one haven't flowered yet. I've switched from a grow fertilizer to a bloom fertilizer, and now it's just a waiting game to allow the buds to develop more and fatten up. You can see here that I'm starting to get nutrient imbalance mid-flowering cycle, which is causing some damage to the leaves. And it looks like it can either be a nutrient lockout or just a deficiency. But like I mentioned before, this is sort of hard to correct because normally I would just flush the entire system. But I can't do that here because it's in a storage bin. So what I did is I just watered once with plain water to make sure that if it is a lockout, all the excess nutrients are being taken in by the plant. And then afterwards, I watered again with a normal dose of bloom fertilizer, which seemed to have corrected the issue for the most part. And now that I'm around a week or two from finishing the grow system crapped out on me again. Except this time when I checked to see what was going on, it turned out that the power supply bundled with this grow kit completely died. Unfortunately, I don't have a 24 volt 6 amp power brick lying around, so I was just going to end the grow here. But I did find this 19 volt 4.74 amp power brick lying around that I figured I might as well try, which in hindsight was a terrible idea, as I'm sure I could have damaged the entire grow system if the polarity was wrong, not to mention the risk of running at a lower voltage and lower current. But it did work. And due to the smaller power brick, I also lowered the light brightness by 30%, and then I just let the grow continue while monitoring it more often to make sure that it was still working properly. Things seemed to be doing okay, but what I didn't check on was the power brick itself until a couple of days later, and when I tried to pick it up, it almost burned my hand to the touch. So yeah, now was a good time to call it quits. I'm just removing the large fan leaves since I plan on hanging the entire plant up. And after cutting the plant off from the base, let's take a look at the root structure. This is pretty cool, because the roots have spread out throughout the entire storage bin. So I'm able to lift up the entire thing by just pulling up on the nursery bag. And here you can see how well the nursery bag worked, with the roots able to spread out to the rest of the coco coir in the storage bin as if the nursery bag wasn't even there. I'll just hang the plant up to dry for a week or so. And that's it. Like the content? Then be sure to check out our beginner's guide to creating CBD products from scratch, available at Amazon in print and digital, with links in the description below. You can also find us at hempinapot.com.